The medical system is on the verge of a complete collapse, a meltdown. Many of us who are within the system already know this, and many of you who experience the system every day know that this cannot continue. We are on an absolutely unsustainable trajectory. It is so very tragic because so many of you really need good healthcare and you need timely healthcare. We're going to talk about what's going on with the system, some big changes that you can expect over the upcoming few years. And we're going to be very open and honest as three doctors who care very deeply about the system and you getting the best possible care that you deserve and your family deserves. And for anybody who enjoys our discussions, please check in the link down below, a link to our separate, unique channel where we post a lot of exclusive content on matters related to your health and well-being. So let's dive in then. Dr. Ben, do you want to start? You see the system every day. What do you think about where it's going in this horrible trajectory we're on?
Well, like you said, you can see it every single day. I mean, it's the care that we're delivering is suboptimal around the board. I mean, what you're seeing is patients are coming in, they have very poor access to their doctors, and anybody out there, I'm sure you've had extreme difficulty either finding a doctor, getting in touch with the doctor, getting appointments, your appointments are rescheduled. I can promise you from the other end, that's not intentional. It is just part of this collapse. There are not enough doctors. There is not enough time. Everything is becoming scattered. It's all kind of breaking apart and we're watching it happen in real time. And the worst part of all of it is watching what's happening to patients and seeing it all kind of fall apart in front of you. It's just a horrible thing to be a part of. And we try to fix it. I mean, there are all kinds of things that are being worked on, but it just, you're watching it over the years, over the decades, just deteriorate. I think there are a lot of reasons for it.
It's so true, Ben. It's so fragmented, right? And I think that's probably a good way of saying it, and so disconnected. I mean, you have now all these hospital systems taking over practices. So the days of private practice for a lot of people have ended. You have corporatization of healthcare where people are working for large venture capital companies. Electronic health records. I can't tell you how many people are on Epic, which is a healthcare software on my chart, but then other hospitals aren't, or in a different software. So, all these doctors, all the hospitals were mandated to have electronic health records, but were never mandated for them to be interoperable. So you already were set to fail in the beginning, because now as hospitals grow and we have all these different healthcare systems that just don't talk to each other. And communication has been a huge disruption, especially I think in the past 4 to 5 years, where you can't get a hold of anyone. How many times have you called your doctor's office and you don't get a call back? You have to call multiple times. I don't know if there's any other type of entity that functions as a business that would tolerate that type of lack of communication, or it's not customer service support, but it's patient service support that's just not there.
Absolutely awful. Yeah. And you've touched upon so many points there, Dr. Peter, that we know that all of you watching really feel. And we're going to talk in a little bit about what you can all do to protect yourselves and your family and prepare for what is inevitably going to come over the next few years, because we can tell you that we're on this horrible path as three doctors. And I know many of you watching are also overseas, and you will find it fascinating if you're in, for instance, the United Kingdom. Many of the problems are all the same, even though we have completely different systems in the United States where we are, and the UK, which I know very well, the National Health Service. But I think this is not an accident that Western countries are going in the same direction. How do you feel, gentlemen, about when you're interacting with the system every day? Now, you mentioned there's lots of different factors involved as to why there's a complete collapse. How do you feel about ultimately the economic situation dictating that we can't continue? Obviously, we're talking about the United States.
Yep.
That alone is going to lead to a complete meltdown very soon.
I think there's so many things we need to talk about when you talk about the economic system. I think the big things we need to talk about are the outside influences that surround medicine, like insurance, pharmaceutical companies, how that all interacts, the influence they have on the system. Insurance is, for anyone listening, if you've ever needed anything medically, I would say it's almost impossible you haven't had some difficulty with insurance. It is the absolute craziest thing. I mean, we have a situation where we all pay a certain amount to the insurance company, and then when we need the care, it very often is rejected. And it didn't used to be as aggressive, but over the years, and certainly recently, insurance companies are rejecting enormous amounts of things that would have been unthinkable a decade, 2 decades ago, now are standard practice. So when you have people coming in that need certain treatments, that have certain trust with their physician, that are expecting certain things, and it's blanketly being denied, I mean, you can't expect to have good care in a situation like that.
And that's appropriate care that's being denied too. It's not necessarily anything that's really far-fetched. And I see this every day. This is what we do, and this is what we've become. We've become sort of soldiers against the healthcare insurance companies. And I feel like we're letting our patients down because we can't get things approved that we know would make you feel better. And I think that is a really big fundamental problem, is that we don't have control of, I can't treat you the way I want, or that you should be treated, because I have to spend my days fighting with insurance companies. That's a huge burden for the patient, for everyone involved. It disrupts healthcare.
It makes it completely impossible. And I can tell you this as a hospital doctor, the amount of bureaucracy that we are increasingly having to deal with about whether a patient should be classed as inpatient or observation, other requirements in terms of documentation. And this is why so many doctors are frustrated, and many doctors sadly are leaving the system. Many are leaving the profession because of what's happened. But you have this kind of perfect storm of different factors. And we know that you all see it every day. You have insurance, you have the outside interests, you have pharmaceutical companies, other big business interests, health, IT. I mean, that has completely overtaken everything. I mean, your typical doctor now will spend 70% of the day in front of the computer, maybe more, and 30% with patients. Go back 30 to 40 years to the good old days, the community doctor would come to your house with a bag. It was 80% to your face, 5% or 10% scribbling on notes, writing prescriptions, and we've had a flip around. So how is any professional going to be happy in that circumstance where there's just overwhelming bureaucracy? It can't continue like this.
No, if you look at even the evolution of patient notes, I mean, if you look at your notes from, if you saw a doctor 20 years ago till now, before you had a sense of the patient and you knew that you were individualizing care for you as a patient. Now the electronic health records are more like insurance documents. I mean, they're just click after click after click, and it's really just billing codes. And that's what it's become. It's just a billing code note.
I had a complicated patient that was coming, and by complicated, I mean a lot had happened to them. They had a lot of medical things happening to them. They've been hospitalized at an outside institution, so I didn't have access to their records, and I had them faxed over. And when you read through, it was 40 pages of documents came over. Actually, I think it was more than that. It was maybe like 70 pages. There were only maybe 6 to 7 relevant pages that had to do with their healthcare. All of it was stuff that was needed by insurance companies and regulatory stuff and stuff about their insurance, the card they had. It was insane. I just looked through it. I couldn't believe it. It took me forever to get to anything relevant. It was incredible. I mean, and that's what we're dealing with now.
It's so true. When I get a new patient, I will go through pages and pages of sheets, really just to find out what that patient used to do for work. I mean, that's just something, I mean, there's 1,000 other questions. I'm sure you've been asked this before about like, what type of pets do you have at home? Like, where's your smoke detector? Like, it just goes on and page after page after page, and there's nothing personal in that note anymore. And so look at your note from people who have MyChart, which is a big healthcare system, software program, or these portals. You can look at your notes and you can see that they're no longer like these personal notes. It could be anyone just thrown in. It's just crazy.
It's awful. I mean, this is my everyday work as a doctor in the hospital. I can tell you the last few days, this happened yesterday. I was going through a chart of a hospitalized patient, and it was looking at records from another hospital. And I was going through it, these clinic notes, and I couldn't find what was actually wrong. Like, there were like streams of their history, tick boxes, whether they've received shots, going through that. And I couldn't find what the doctor had actually thought was wrong with them during the visit. And I scrolled, it was somewhere 2/3 through, it was like this much. And the note was like 6 or 7 pages long. And this is what we have allowed to happen to healthcare. It's beyond a joke. It's unsustainable. This is why you need to prepare for what is going to come next when the system does implode. I have said many times before, and you two gentlemen may think I'm being harsh, but I think the medical profession really has a lot to blame, because being a doctor was very different before my time. I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. We all know from more senior doctors we work with, and the medical profession did have more say over how things went. But when a profession which is supposed to be noble and supposed to represent the true health and well-being of a patient surrenders itself to other interests, this is exactly what happens. This is why I blame the medical profession. Tell me if I'm being too harsh, but collectively, we have allowed this to happen.
I'm not sure. It's a bloated mess, and we know that statistically there's probably about 10 administrators per doctor now. And I think that is just a money suck of just these hospitals need to generate revenue to pay salaries of a lot of this administration. And it's diverted away from what really makes healthcare better. And the stuff we just talked about, like looking through a note, is that a big problem that you have to look through a note and not find out why the patient is there? And that affects you as a patient, because that's actually should be a sign of what's coming down the road. Because this is one instance where as technology gets better, I think healthcare is getting worse.
That is a really striking point. You got that from our amazing cardiologist here. As technology gets better, I also believe individualized healthcare is getting worse. You go through your notes, often there's like massive mistakes there anyway. And it was put very well to me by an amazing doctor that I worked with a few years ago who was about to retire. And he was one day in front of the screen and he just shook his head to me and he said, "Sunil, you know what? The stories have all gone from medicine. I can't find what's wrong with my patient in the note anymore. It seems like no doctors actually talk to them face to face. They're just obsessed with their tick boxes. What happened to stories? Because you are all what's important. You are why we went into medicine. We want the best. We 3 doctors anyway for all of our patients, but yet we work in a system. And if we're getting frustrated, you can imagine how other people are feeling as well. But I do think too many doctors are simply okay with putting their heads down and thinking, I will do this. I won't speak up about the ridiculous direction we're heading in. And this is why things keep getting worse. There's silence. And we've seen what happened during the pandemic with a culture of censorship of doctors who step out of line. Okay, everyone, I'm going to interrupt that awesome discussion for a moment to tell you about our expanding natural health and well-being store. We are very proud of our expanding store. We have natural immune inflammation support, bone support, memory support, heart support, sleep support, and our newly released premium organic lion's mane and organic chai mix. We've got some great reviews so far. Check in the links down below. ohiwellness.com if you're in the USA, North America, ohiwellness.co if you're in the UK, Europe. Also keep an eye out for our upcoming food and beverage products, including protein-thin snacks. All right, back to the discussion. Would you say in your years of practice, not that you've been in practice forever, you're quite a young doctor, but just in the time that you've been in practice, that things have got worse?
They've absolutely gotten worse, I think, for many of the reasons that we're saying right now. But also, medicine has moved so far away from autonomy and this idea that you can empower people to take health into their own hands and be their guide instead of ticking a bunch of boxes that may or may not have anything to do with them. Have you guys ever heard of a Medicare wellness exam? You probably don't do them.
I've searched the paperwork,
seen mine, haven't you?
50 pages.
So I do something called, primary care doctors do this called Medicare wellness exams. And the poor people that have to come in and do these exams, if you're over 65, you start qualifying, you have to answer this unbelievably enormous questionnaire that's given to us by the government. And it is humongous. And it asks you a bunch of questions that, if you've done this, you will often find are totally irrelevant, or that the doctor should know because they've seen you every year for the last 10 to 20 years. But you have to go through them. And some of the patients get fed up and just go, you answer that. I've kind of had it with these. But it's this whole idea that wild disrespecting of the relationship between the physician and the patient. I know my patients. I don't need to have them tick a box to tell me, how they're doing at home. I know that's what we're going to talk about. That's what the whole appointment is. That's what all the care is about. But they have to fill out these sheets every single year. It is just, it's crazy.
Imagine if you could just walk into your doctor's office for an appointment, go right into the room. The doctor could just check your blood pressure and you could just address what the problem is instead of having to go through layers of questions, check-in process, like an assistant putting stuff in the computer, waiting.
That's how things used to be. I remember when I was growing up in my little village in England, this wasn't that long ago. I'm not talking about something which was like decades ago, but I remember you could show up at the doctor's practice GP office and go get an appointment on the same day. You would just walk in and the doctor would sometimes call you in. Yeah, come on. And that's because they didn't have that bureaucracy. They had autonomy. And now everything is very different. And we have this whole generation of doctors. This is a great segue to what we want to talk about next, which is staff shortages. You all see this every single day. There's not enough primary care doctors, not enough nurses. And those that are there, a lot of them are trying to do different things. And I hate to say it, from what I've seen, many doctors are trying to get into administration themselves because they kind of had it with clinical medicine, which is what they wanted to do. They once had ideals in their mind as a medical student. It's really sad, but you're the ones who are suffering now because of this.
Yeah, I mean, certain doctors have talked about this kind of moral damage that's occurred to physicians. And the idea behind that was that the damage was that you went into this to help people and to get to know them and to practice medicine. And you were being used by these outside interests to basically sell their drugs, sign something so that, they can charge the patient. They're using you as a middleman. And when you begin to realize that, that's the moral damage they're talking about. There's an intentional barrier between you and the patient. And that's why doctors are getting so disillusioned and walking away. And it's also other people can make money.
I think patients are trying to walk away from it too. The problem is they just don't have a way to go. I mean, some patients have have the luxury to be able to afford like a VIP practice, which still aren't all that great, or some other type of boutique practice where they're seeing less patients so they can kind of get back to an older style of medicine. I think doctors are trying to escape, but I mean, in reality, what it comes down to hurts you as a patient because we're going to lose good people, smart people who would be great at treating patients because they know now that it's not going to be that way anymore. It's a system of just what we talked about, computers and bureaucracy and lack of communication. I always had to call another surgical office, and this just seems kind of crazy to even hear, but we got an answering machine because no one picked up the phone, which is kind of the norm. I don't think anyone now expects to call a medical office and have someone actually answer the phone. But this is a surgical office, so you expect they need to get back to you promptly, but they said on their actual answer machine that we are short-staffed at the moment, so we will not get back to you for another 24 hours. And so can you imagine being a patient you just had surgery and you're calling with some type of question related to the surgery and you're told that you're short-staffed? It just shows how it would give me a lot of mistrust in the system.
Yeah. And you've touched on so much there. I mean, that's fairly typical experience for many, many people within the system who are trying to contact their doctor. And I would add to what you mentioned that many patients that I meet are going outside the system. This is a huge trend. I know many of you watching may have been going in this direction as well. You are done with being in the system. Of course, there's an affordability issue, whether you want to get a concierge type of doctor who isn't even involved in insurance. Many people I know are getting their own blood tests, ordering themselves online, which you could do across the United States. Just go get blood tests, check them, see if there's anything abnormal, and doing your own research. This is happening increasingly, and I don't blame people because the healthcare system is failing. I don't think doctors have any moral high ground here to say you have to come through us when you're failing. The system is entirely failing. Dr. Peter, I want to speak about something that I know that you have strong beliefs on, and this is what's happened in the United States, the fall of private practice. And for those of you who are overseas, in the United States, doctors essentially up until 30 to 40 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago, this is before our time, used to be small business owners. So they would finish their residency, enter a practice. It might be a small group practice, a large group practice, but essentially they would be small business owners. That has been completely replaced by almost all doctors now joining bigger corporations. I think this is a key factor in the decline of medicine and also the upcoming meltdown that we're going to face. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I can agree more. And this is so dear to me because I still am in private practice, and I am a dying breed, especially as a cardiologist in private practice, where most cardiology practice happens swallowed by corporate healthcare. I'm fortunate enough to be able to see patients and spend the time I want with them. I have the luxury of being able to not be put to a timer where a lot of corporate America, corporate healthcare is, where you have to see a patient every 5 or 10 minutes. I have the luxury of that, and I know that I have that, and I know that most of healthcare is not like that anymore. And the problem is that corporate healthcare swallowed up all these practices. And again, we talked about the bloat of healthcare, where they fill up with administrators like director of this, associate director of this. I mean, I can't tell you, just in hospital systems I've worked in my career, just seeing the amount of emails saying, oh, this person's hired for this job, and I don't even know what the job is or what it's actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that unfortunately, corporatization is just destroying the quality of care. I had one office saying that the medical assistant would be in it with the doctor, and it was really awkward because after, I think it was like 8 minutes, she would have to give a little knock to let the doctor know that she spent 8 minutes with a patient so far. That's getting time. So can you imagine being in a room telling something like really dire to your doctor about something that's really affecting you, and you have someone else just knocking like it's a time clock? And that's what we've become. So I think people thought that maybe that is a way out. Doctors are trying to get out because there's also, it's a lot to run a practice.
It is, yeah.
But I think people now realize that was a big downfall, and people are trying to get back to how medicine used to be.
Yeah, and Dr. Peter, I know you're one of the few last men standing, Braveheart, and I know how busy you are, but there is such a yearning for more doctors to be independent, but it's very tough. I mean, you're working in a system which is trying its best to stop doctors from having autonomy and independence.
Well, I think you can think of anyone that owns their own business, and you out there that have owned your own business or been to a small shop where someone makes something or sells something, you can understand the connection they have to it. They love it. It reflects who they are. It's a big part of what they care about. And the same thing goes with medicine too. I mean, everyone has a connection to their patients, but if it's your practice, you built it, you have these people that you see all the time, you're responsible for taking care of them. You can understand there's a tighter connection there. And when that was taken away, there's a lot that started to go away with it.
Yeah, and the two follow. I don't think it's any coincidence that the fall of private practice has been when medicine really started to go downhill in the United States. Yeah, that's it.
And I say this a lot too, and this is, and I hate hearing this, and sometimes I feel so bad for patients, is because we've been led to believe that this is acceptable. Is, patients will know that you're busy, and everyone's busy, right? And so, but I'll come into an exam room and sometimes the patient is like, oh, I'm fine. I won't waste too much of your time because I know you have other patients you have to see. And I'm not saying, no, this is your time, and that's how it should be. And so I think patients are treated like customers, where they're just been shown that they only have this amount of time that you can't go over. And some people just feel like they're taking up your time, and it's just, I don't know.
It's sad. Well, you're talking as a doctor with a big heart. And yeah, of course, we want to give our patients the best, but we're working in a system which is against us. So I want to add one other factor here to the mix of the upcoming medical meltdown, because we've talked about the economics, the insurance, we've talked about the fall of private practice, the other players. But for me, a huge factor, which we absolutely cannot ignore, you probably know what I'm about to say, the metabolic health catastrophe, simply how many millions of people that are sick. I mean, you look at statistics now, 40% of adolescents are now pre-diabetic, severe insulin resistance. Can you imagine the avalanche that is going to hit in 10 years' time when all of these youngsters get type 2 diabetes, premature heart disease, other inflammatory disorders? It is going to be a catastrophe. I don't think that anything like this has ever happened before in human history, to my knowledge, where so many young people have got sick. I mean, smoking was devastating, but it took people decades to get problems from smoking. But this is happening much sooner. Add that to the mix, and the economics of this are absolutely unsustainable in countries like the USA and UK. So we've talked to you about a few factors here, which are going to mean that healthcare in 5 to 10 years is going to be very, very different from what it is now, probably even worse. Hate to say it, but I believe it's true. So what can you all do to help with the situation? Because we want the best for you and your family, but we have to be realistic here about what's about to happen. The first point I'd like to touch upon is people taking health into their own hands and doing their best to stay healthy and be well informed. I know you have strong feelings about that too.
Absolutely. And that's why I strive for a lot of my patients is this regular low impact exercise, cutting back on processed carbs, refined seed oils. You talked about kids before, about 70% get their calories from highly processed refined carbs. And you have to just be the healthiest you could be, because if you're not, no one else is going to do that for you in this day and age. You have to start with yourself, and you have to make those changes.
Number one thing to do, yeah.
I think health can't be an afterthought. It's an afterthought for our society as a whole, but it can't be for you. We all need to start looking at our own health as an absolute priority. Because if you don't make it a priority, I can promise you no one else will. So you have to make it a priority. You have to really stay educated, stay informed, learn as much as you can about it, and really take it into your own hands. Be careful with what you're eating. Be careful with what you're putting in your body. Know everything that you're eating. Know all the medications that you're being offered and what they mean and how they work and what the side effects are. It's it's vital. It's vital.
It is, yeah. Do your absolute best to stay in shape. As Dr. Peter alluded to, cut back on the processed foods, the carbs, sugars, if you have excessive body fat, which statistically most Americans and Brits do, then it should be an absolute number one priority in your life to get in better shape. No excuses whatsoever. If you're a grown adult, this should be number one priority in your life. Exercise, as you mentioned, and you will be a lot happier for it, both physically and mentally, and dramatically reduce your chances that you will even need the system. We want you to be healthy naturally. Don't get sucked into the medical industrial complex. It's an easy thing to happen once those excess pounds pile on and you start getting inflammation, insulin resistance. That's the route to go down. And we see it every day. And you get on a treadmill. I mean, how often do we see this? Specialist after specialist. But the underlying reason is poor metabolic health.
Absolutely. You have to be proactive and not reactive. And I think that's the main take-home point there.
Exactly. So please do keep that in mind. Let's talk a little bit about health information technology. We do know that many of you have concerns about artificial intelligence. Now, it is going to be the future. Hopefully, some of you have already utilized it for your own health and well-being. Of course, be careful. You want to be careful about how you're using it, who's using it on you as well. But there's various programs out there that can really help you to ask questions and get knowledge that you wouldn't have been able to get a few years ago.
It's so true. I think it's really valuable as a patient, not necessarily on medications. I mean, medication side effects, but not stopping or starting your medications. But where it's really helpful for patients is, everyone tells you to stay hydrated. Like, so how much do you need to stay hydrated? Mm-hmm. Everyone tells you how to eat. And as we talked about, doctors and healthcare providers don't spend enough time talking about metabolic health. So that's research that you can do on your own. So you can really use AI, some of these AI programs to really find out like what is the best foods. Some of the programs you can actually scan the labels and they'll tell you what are the bad ingredients in the food to help you make better choices. It can set up exercise plans for you that you should just, run by your doctor, of course, just to make sure but it's just lots of different things that it can do just from like a lifestyle change perspective. I think that's really the powerful tool for patients.
Yeah, you have to be clever as well about how you use AI, because if you're getting guidelines from authorities, then of course you're going to be lumbered often with some very questionable conflicts of interest. But you can ask AI pretty much anything you want. You can say, what are the questions or concerns with the College of Cardiology, Gastroenterology, Neurology, these guidelines, and it will often tell you what concerns are. And seek out alternative voices. Trust your gut instinct. There are many people online. I mean, I've had help over the years from many people online with various questions that I've had, and they've been outside of the mainstream. That happens all the time. So this is the beauty about living today. You don't have to get your advice from only one source. Dr. Baird, are you finding in your primary care practice that more patients are coming in with questions or giving you possible concerns which they have got from AI?
Yes, more people are definitely beginning to use it. I don't think it's reached the point by any means that it's going to. I think it's going to get to a point where it's even more useful. And I got to tell you, I am absolutely for any tool, any technology that empowers patients to learn and take health into their own hands. I think you need a guide, and I think a guide is very helpful, but I think the ability to do this and learn on your own and have a tool that makes it easy is what needs to happen. I mean, people need to have the ability to take health out of their own hands.
Exactly, yeah. And be careful, as I said, about the AI you're using, and use it in a very clever way. And that's actually a nice segue onto the last point here, which is, what role will doctors play? You need doctors, your family needs doctors, and there's such a shortage of good doctors. We always give the advice to speak with your doctor, hopefully your trusted doctor. Never change medications by yourself. It's so important to speak with a physician. But then many of you will come back with the next obvious concern and question. We can't find any good doctors, or we don't like our doctor, we don't trust doctors, and we are fully empathetic as to how difficult it is, and we feel for you. We have family members and friends in the same situation. It is a complete minefield out there. I would really urge you to keep looking. There are doctors out there. I wish I had a list. I wish we had a list of good doctors all across the country and the world who share traditional values and ways of thinking. I'm not aware of any such list like that. We do get asked that question a fair bit, actually. But we would urge you to keep looking, get second opinions, speak to people in your area about doctors, and get a lot of information online. There's lots of doctors speaking, and you have to use your own judgment about whether you trust that or not. Do you think, gentlemen, the situation with finding doctors is going to get better or worse? I think I know what your answer is going to be over the next few years.
I think over the next few years, it'll get worse. But I don't know if that's the end of the story. I'm not exactly sure where this is all going to go. I think there's no question the system is heading toward collapse. But could it right itself? If the right decisions are made in time, if patients are given the autonomy they deserve, if technology actually works to help patients get information that they need, maybe in time there could be some optimism.
I agree. I want to stay positive on the whole matter. I do think it's going to get worse. And I've seen it get worse over the next couple of years.
Staying positive.
The past couple of years. But,
Yeah.
I was going to say, but, I do think that it is going to get better with the things we talked about and changing the things that we talked about. I think the first thing definitely is identifying what's wrong. If technology like AI can help take the burden off doctors to focus more on actually treating the patient and to take away mundane tasks, which are so prevalent in medicine, I do think that you're going to bring more doctors back to healthcare, or have good doctors that want to stay in because they feel like they can treat people. Because right now, a lot of doctors don't feel that way. And a lot of times we feel like we're failing our patients. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do think with some work, or a lot of work, actually, it will get better.
Yeah, we've outlined a lot of the reasons why we believe it's going to get worse. There's going to be a meltdown and collapse because it's unsustainable. But on that note, I would add some optimism as well. Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And there's a saying, and this is true for individuals, sometimes you have to reach rock bottom before you actually improve. And I believe that that is the case with healthcare. What I'm optimistic about is that increasingly people are waking up to what a complete sham, the system is sham, or I could say scam as well, and many parts of it, sadly. People are seeking alternative answers. People are questioning what their doctors are saying. And I am all for technology. It is absolutely fantastic that people can get information online, even with AI, and are increasingly challenging their doctors. And that's a good thing. No good doctor should ever mind being asked good questions about treatment options, because at the end of the day, you are the ones in charge here. Do let us know in the comments down below what you think. We would be very curious to know your thoughts. I assume that you've had some negative experiences out there. Who hasn't? But do you feel the same way, that we're going to see a big comeback after going down to rock bottom? Or do you think we're going to be left with a whole new system, whole new way of healthcare and medicine within the next few years? Who knows what the future is? We can only do our best every single day. So keep going, everyone. Stay healthy. Your success is our success. We are rooting for you all to succeed. Do check in the links down below as well for our natural health and well-being store, ohiwellness.com. If you're in the USA, North America, ohiwellness.co. If you're in the UK, Europe, and we will surely speak again in the next show.